It's a little known fact that buildings contribute to almost 50% of the carbon emissions in the UK, which is more than the emissions from both cars and planes. Together, we need to take action to make buildings more energy efficient as part of the UK's commitment to tackling climate change. Energy performance certificates highlight the existing energy efficiency of a building and what can be done to make it more efficient. But EPCs are just the start. They represent a real opportunity, but we need to turn them into action. Reducing carbon emissions by making buildings more energy efficient makes business and commercial sense. Energy efficient buildings use less energy, cost less to run, and also demonstrate a real commitment to corporate social responsibility. This short video gives an insight into how a building is assessed and an EPC produced. We in Communities and Local Government recently obtained an EPC for our own building, Eland House, and followed the progress of the assessment so that you can see what the assessor is looking for and what key factors in a building contribute to its energy performance. The Energy Performance of Buildings Directive is a challenge for everyone with an interest in commercial and residential property, but it is also an important opportunity. We need to take action now.
The introduction of EPCs is being phased in so that by the 1st of October 2008, all buildings in England and Wales will need an energy performance certificate when built, sold or rented. EPCs look similar to energy labels currently provided with vehicles and appliances such as fridges, and use the same coloured A to G efficiency scale, A being very efficient and G being least efficient. They also include a recommendation report which highlights specific actions that can be taken to reduce the carbon emissions from the building. The certificates can only be produced by an accredited energy assessor. Assessment is a complex process that requires a skilled assessor to collect key information about the building. This information is then fed into government-approved software that determines the rating and produces the EPC. So, what does an assessment involve? We follow Energy Assessor Debbie Hobbs as she assesses the communities and local government building. The assessment starts with a review of the building's fabric, its structure and type of construction, insulation and glazing.
When we start the energy assessment of a building, the first thing we need to find out is about the actual fabric of the building. And in this case, it's obviously a lot of glass. And the glass itself is very efficient glass. It's actually way ahead of its time when it was built. The other kind of things we're looking for is the ventilation, which in this case comes off of the floors and is extracted into the atrium. And that's very important in terms of the air conditioning design. I guess the final thing we're looking for here is that the lighting around the perimeter has light level sensors on it, so it will dim when there's enough daylight coming through the atria.
Heating, cooling and hot water systems have a significant impact on how a building functions. The type of plant installed, how the system's designed and the fuels used all determine how energy efficient a system is.
Another piece of information we need to collect, to actually put in the model of the building, is about the air conditioning. And here in Eland House is actually a very efficient form of air conditioning called displacement ventilation. The air comes in through these big air handling units and then is supplied through the grills in the floor, which make it very efficient because it goes with the natural buoyancy of the air.
Building services use a significant amount of energy and have a major impact on the energy performance of buildings. Improving building energy performance can significantly improve the way buildings work, make them better places to work in, and save money and cut carbon emissions at the same time. Even small changes to systems can make a big difference to energy performance. Mechanical and electrical systems should be set up and controlled so that they run efficiently and effectively when they're needed and don't run when they're not. Energy assessors are highly experienced, accredited professionals who'll be able to give advice on how to set the systems up and also on obsolete systems that might be considered for replacement. Air conditioning inspections will look at the way these systems are set up, as well as looking at the size of the system compared to the space it's serving. People who've got existing maintenance contracts will be able to have the inspection as an additional service.
The type of lighting installed in a building can greatly affect its energy performance. Debbie looks at the lighting in Eland House and explains what it means in terms of energy efficiency.
Another really important thing when you're doing an energy performance assessment is actually the type of lighting you've got. In this building it's particularly important because there's so much open plan office space. Here we've actually got compact fluorescent lighting, which is a really efficient form of lighting. Another key factor to do with lighting is how you're actually controlling it. So in here we've got occupancy sensors, which means the lights will go out when nobody's in the room. In terms of lighting, one of the recommendations that comes out of this EPC is actually to change the lighting in the bottom of the atria, which has got some older lighting called metal halide, and to replace it with some more energy efficient lighting, such as the fluorescents which are in this office.
Commercial buildings often have many different zones and uses of space, and this needs to be taken into account when assessing a building. Office space, for example, will be different in terms of energy efficiency from a restaurant or kitchen in the same building.
Within the model you have to create different activities and assign them to different zones. So for instance here we've obviously got the canteen, and within this building you've also got the car park, the office space, things like the boiler room are all different activities. And then for each zone and activity you actually have an associated heating and cooling load that relates to whatever you've labelled it with.
Yeah, the introduction of EPCs is really important in that it will allow the prospective purchaser or tenant of a building to make a much more informed choice, and this will help to drive up standards. The EPCs are a very simple mechanism really in that they allow a very visual representation of how energy efficient a building is. So it's something that at a glance anybody either visiting a building or a prospective purchaser or tenant can come to a conclusion regarding the energy performance. With nearly 50% of UK carbon emissions coming from buildings, getting the fabric and the design of buildings right is absolutely crucial. And very often it's possible to reduce the energy used by buildings by 20 to 30% simply by adopting cost-effective improvements. Beaufort Court's really interesting because it shows what can be done when you take a historic building and by upgrading the fabric and the performance of the building, we've actually managed to convert it into the country's first ultra-low energy, ultra-low carbon building.
Once Debbie's collected all the necessary information from Eland House, the details are analysed, inputted into the accreditation scheme and lodged in the National EPC Register. A rating is calculated in accordance with a national methodology that takes into account the elements we've seen, such as the construction of the building, heating and hot water systems, ventilation and fuels used.
When you come back from your site visit, the most essential thing to have is some scaled floor plans. From that you can zone up the building, and for each zone of the building you then tell the model what type of air conditioning, heating and lighting it has in it. Also for each zone you put in the details and dimensions of the fabric and the height and the width of the building. And once you've got all your information added, you can press a button and you can generate your energy performance certificate. Once you've generated your EPC, all you have to do to register it is email a file to your accreditation body.
Once the certificate's been produced and registered, the assessor will provide the building owner or manager with their EPC. So, how did Eland House do?
Eland House is a C rating, which is actually very good for a building of its age and only marginally below the benchmark for an equivalent new build. The recommendation report has actually been really useful, both in helping identify opportunities and also assessing the potential impact of these. Being a government department and having led on the development of EPC legislation, we're actually already highly focused on reducing carbon emissions as an organisation and have already got many opportunities already scheduled for the coming year. I'm no doubt the recommendation reports will prove invaluable to environmental and building managers. Not only would it help improve energy efficiency and reduce associated carbon emissions, but it also help make the building more attractive to potential buyers and future tenants.
An energy performance certificate is not an end in itself, it's a means to an end. What it's doing is it's telling you whether or not you've got an acceptable building or whether you've actually got a rather gas-guzzling building that you need to do something about. Because the whole point is the certificate, when you get it, will tell you not just what the current performance is, but also what you can do to up the rating to be a B or even an A-rated building. There are fundamentally two reasons why any company would want to upgrade their building. The first one is to do with saving on fuel bills. Fuel bills are going up, we all know that. Well, if you can improve the energy rating of the building, then the likelihood is that you're going to have much lower fuel bills, much lower outgoings. That's point one. The other point also is it says what type of company you are to the outside world. If you're occupying a gas-guzzling building, then you're not really much of a good corporate citizen. You don't really care. If you're prepared to actually upgrade your building so it's obvious you're occupying a B or even an A-rated building, that's saying we care, we have genuine social responsibilities, corporate social responsibilities. We want to say we're good environmental citizens. That's what having a good energy performance certificate tells one.
For more information on energy performance certificates or to find an accredited assessor, visit www.communities.gov.uk.